Predicting diabetes using automated machine learning, which is the process of automating the task of applying machine learning to real-world problems. In this video, we will be covering creating an Azure Machine Learning Workspace, Azure Machine Learning Studio, creating compute instance, creating datasets, running automated machine learning experiment, reviewing model, deploying predictive service, and testing the deployed service. Please check the description below for more information. In the end, we will also share details about the Azure Data Scientist Masterclass, which will not only help you understand basics, but it will also give you an idea of the learning path to follow. It would be helpful, especially when you're preparing for Azure Data Scientist certification. That's designing and implementing a data science solution on Azure, which will earn you Azure Data Scientist Associate certification. Welcome to another episode of Azure video series from K21Academy, where we take you from complete beginner, covering no-code machine learning, to all the way training models, including running experiments, monitoring, and working with data, as well as how to prepare for the Microsoft Azure Data Scientist certification. We have taken a clip from one of our certification training program on designing and implementing a data science solution on Azure. That's DP100. And in this clip, our Microsoft certified trainer will talk about predict diabetes in patients using Azure automated machine learning. So, this is a clip taken from a module on no-code machine learning with Designer. Now, let's hear from an expert trainer on the same.
Okay, so in the demo, what we are going to do, we are going to create our machine learning workspace and explore what are the components there in our Azure Machine Learning Studio, create compute instance because we need that to run our data set algorithms on it, the compute capability. Then we are going to create a data set and run an automated machine learning experiment. Once we run and finish, we are going to review which is the best model that is giving us the high performance. Then we select that one and we are going to deploy it. All right. So without a further ado, let me quickly share my screen, change my screen and start showing the demo. So this is our Azure portal. So as you see, we have some of the resources here. Again, we will have some basics covered as we start the class. So now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a compute instance. Okay. So when I want to create any resource, first I can look for it. I'm going to say, okay, first I'm going to select my Azure Machine Learning. Okay. And so now I'm going to create. Okay. So when I create, I quickly give my details. What is the resource group I want to provide? Resource group is your logical grouping of things you want to keep it together. Okay, so I just specify where I want to create my resource group, which data center I'm choosing. So I'm choosing the region Southeast Asia. So Azure has over 58 data centers, and so I selected the one near to me and I created it. So it's taking a couple of seconds to deploy it. Okay. Now it's deploying in progress. So now once it's deployed, it will look something like this. Just to save the time, I have deployed something already. So I'm going to run through that. So once I come here, like the first thing we need to create is the compute resource. To create again compute resource, I can click. Okay, before that, let me quickly give you a brief overview to this particular interface. So this is your Microsoft Azure Machine Learning Studio. So here I have author block, asset blocks, and manage block. Author block is where I'm going to write my code or run my code. Okay, like we mentioned earlier, we are going to use a lot of these Python codes that is written, and in the assets, we are going to create our data set, bring data from local storage or from other databases and so on. And anything that we create as an asset, it's going to be here. If we are going to run a machine learning model through different experiments, those experiments will be under here. Then managing all the resources that we need to run all of these is going to be maintained under manage. Okay, so here first thing we are going to do is we are going to create a compute resource, and I'm going to go to compute and click new, and I'm going to specify what are the capabilities I want to add for compute. So in this case, I selected I want a CPU. In some cases, if you're running deep learning related work, which might require huge processing capability, you may go for GPUs. So in this case, I'm going to select a particular one that can support my workload. So I have decided to go with, again, we will go through all of these details. For now, I'm going to select, this has 2-core CPU with 14 gig RAM and 28 gig storage. So I select this and I say next. Then I'm going to provide the computer name. So compute name, I say this is my compute name. All right. So I'm going to create. All right. So again, it may take some time to get created. So while that is created, now it is creating. Once it starts, once it's complete, it will become a running status. Okay. So now that I have created, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run the machine learning actually, right? So first thing I'm going to do is create a data set. Now that I have established the underlying infrastructure that is required to run my training and models, next thing naturally is to pick up the data. So I'm going to click data sets and I'm going to bring in the data that is going to come from, okay, that is going to come from my local drive. So now that I have gone ahead and selected this particular diabetes CSV file, this little less than half MB. So I'm going to select this. Okay, so it's as straightforward as it is. So once I select the data, I can see the preview. So how I want to split the data, whether what delimiter I want to use, all of that I specify. Then, of course, since my data set already has a header, I'm going to choose use header from the first file. Then I see the preview. Okay, so now I can see the data. I have the patient ID, pregnancies, plasma glucose, and all of these. So whenever we work on this data science project, as a data scientist, it's not only important for you to have the technical knowledge, but you also need to have the domain knowledge about your data. So that is something that you need to focus on the side. So now that I selected, okay, so now I'm going to bring this data into my workspace, all right? So I already created, these are the summary of all the details about it. It's a CSV file and this is where it's coming from and so on. Now I'm going to create. So while I create, it takes a bit of a time. Again, I'm going to use what I have already created before, all right? So which is diabetes data set, all right? So now that I have brought the data, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the machine learning, all right? So I'm going to author it now, all right? So let me go ahead and start, okay, automated ML, and I'm going to create a new automated machine learning run. So I'm going to click OK. So now I have the data set I just created that is available for me to choose. So I'm going to say this is my data set. And in the configuration details, I'm going to specify what is the configuration run that I want to choose. Okay. Okay. So create a new one and I'm going to give a new name. All right. Which is, let's say, diabetes run. That is my experiment name. And what is the target column? Again, the classification is a supervised learning, which means we already have an output label or a label column. So in this case, my label column is I want to predict, given the data set, whether a particular patient is a diabetic or not. So that value is sitting inside the diabetic column in my data set. So I'm going to use diabetic as my target column. Once I select, I'm also going to select my compute resource. All right. So this is the compute cluster that I have created earlier. I have earlier created compute. I would be creating one more as a compute cluster. I have done that. So I'm going to select and I'm going to run. Okay. So now again here, the earlier question was if I know Python, how it's going to be. In Python, you will have to hard code every single thing. Here, as you see, you're just working on the interface. So your focus is not on the complicated things, but your focus is to get the result quickly. And with the Azure ML interface, it becomes much more easier. All right. So now for the classification, I come here, I select, and I think everything is set, and I'm going to say finish. All right. So again, this will take a little bit of time, and while we wait for this, I'm going to go to the existing one that I have created, and now I'm going to click the one that I have created to show. So basically, what we have done so far is we have created a compute. Second, we have created a data set and captured the diabetic CSV. And third, we have specified what type of algorithm we want to run. But if you take notice, we didn't specify exactly what algorithm to run. That's the beauty of Azure, because you don't have to explicitly mention everything. When you say classification, it already has a group of algorithms that can solve classification type of a problem, and it is going to run on all of them. All right. So now that it has run, I can see the results here. The status is complete. And on the right hand side, I also have the best model summary, which means out of the different algorithms that ran on this data, which is the algorithm that gives me the optimal performance of the optimal performance. All right. So now I'm going to select the best model algorithm. I'm going to select them just to see what are the details here. All right. So now I can see AUC is nothing but area under the curve. This is one of the metric that is used often to evaluate the performance of a model, specifically from classification type of algorithm. Again, there are many different metrics, but for this case, I have chosen AUC, and the metrics, why we choose a particular one, we can have different reasons to it. All right. So I have selected that, and I have 0.9, which is closer to 1, which means I can also read this as a 98.87% performance I'm getting through this model. Okay, so that's how I would interpret. And I can also see the other metrics that are generated here. Again, if you're just doing Python, you will have to specify exactly what metric, all of those details. But here, I don't have to do anything. I just need to specify what everything else is created for me to further explore. For example, if you're using confusion matrix, you would be creating accuracy, you would be creating F1 score, you would be creating a precision, you would be creating a recall score. Again, all of these scores are nothing but measures to evaluate the performance of your model. Here, I'm able to see all of them at one go, and that's the beauty of your Azure Machine Learning. Everything is being set for you. So now that I have created and I can see my model has run and finished, next thing I'm going to do is I'm reviewing already. So what I'm doing right now is I'm reviewing the best model, which is displayed here for me. Again, this particular model training has taken about 20 minutes for me to train on, but since that is running at the back, I'm using what I have already set it up for today. All right. So, okay, let me go to, all right. Yes. So this is the one. So how many experiments run? 3 experiments run. So depending on the time allocation you give and what would be the, so you will design, you will put something like an exit criteria. How long you want the model to train from, all right? So all of those things I have specified and created. Now the model is running. Now let me go here. Okay. Okay. So the duration, it ran for 9 minutes and 3 seconds to finish. Once I have this, now I can go ahead and explore. All right. I can also see the explanation. For example, here I can click and so these are all evaluating and understanding the. So now, for example, with the CSV file, these are the different fields I had. So what this visual helps me to see is, out of the different fields I had, okay, be it pregnancy, age, all right, plasma glucose or triceps thickness and so on, which attribute influences the result, the prediction. The prediction is diabetics. So which one contributes more to the prediction of diabetics, and the things are displayed here. Okay, so pregnancies is one of the high influencer. Okay, if someone is identified as diabetic or not. All right. So again, I'll be able to review the best model. I'll also be able to explain what is happening and so on. Now that this is done, the last thing I'm going to do is deploy the predictive model. Okay, so I'm going to go to the details and I'm going to click deploy. All right, at the top, because I have already seen what is the best one and what is the explanation, all the details. Now I'm satisfied. I'm going to deploy the predict diabetics. All right. So again, how I want to deploy, since this is a test scenario, I'm going to use the container instance. Again, this is something we can discuss in detail. But for now, this is something I'm using it as a deployment tool. All right. So I have put it here. Then compute type is my Azure container instances. Then I'm going to enable the authentication so that I can create a proper connectivity through keys and everything to my endpoints later. All right, so done. So I'm going to deploy now. Again, the deployment can take a little bit of time. So let me, okay, so while that is taking time, let me go to the model summary here. Okay. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is, after I have done the deployment, I'm going to consume it. Okay, so I'm going to go to endpoints. Okay, so here I have already created my endpoint. This is running in. Okay, 1 second. All right, this is done. The model is still deploying it. So once that is deployed already, I come to the endpoint and I'm going to select the one that is deployed. All right. So the deployment might take time. So I have already included here. So once it is coming here, I'm going to consume it now. All right. I'm going to consume. And as you see here, I have a, okay, it's completed. Okay, so once I complete, what happens is, let me show you the screen, how it looks like. So what I have done is I created the workspace, then I created a compute instance, then I captured a data set. In this case, I used diabetic CSV. Then I created a automated machine learning experiment. So here I specified what type of algorithm to use. So I chosen classification. But inside classification, there are a group of algorithms which Azure has picked automatically for me. Once it is picked automatically and trained, again, like I said, it might take about 15 to 20 minutes, or you can set the time also, depending on how much time you have and what is the accuracy you want to hit. You'll be able to specify that. Then I reviewed the best model and I could see the score through different metrics. So here I have used area under the curve as my metric. Sometimes we use F1 score, sometimes we use recall, sometimes we use precision. Again, we can go into each of it to understand what is what and when to use what metrics. All right. Then I have deployed it and I'm going to test it with the endpoint service.
So, that was a clip taken from one of the lessons from our step-by-step training program on Microsoft Azure Data Scientist, that's DP100. I would like to invite you for a free 90-minute session with our Microsoft Certified Expert Trainer, where we talk about the Azure Data Scientist training and share information about getting certified by using our step-by-step roadmap to go from complete beginner to a certified Azure Data Scientist. If you are interested, register for a free class by going on to k21academy.com/dp10002. Additionally, we will show live demo predicting diabetes in patients using machine learning. We will also share information about the certification exam. So you can register for free by going on to this URL k21academy.com/dp10002. I will see you in another episode of Azure video series from K21 Academy. Till then, take care.